Captain Zara Chinokafor stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, her dark eyes scanning the tactical display with practiced efficiency. The massive dreadnought hummed around her, its fusion cores running at optimal capacity as they approached the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Behind her, the rest of the 7th Fleet stretched out in perfect formation, 12 heavy cruisers, 18 destroyers, and 6 support vessels, all bearing the distinctive blue and silver insignia of the United Earth Navy. "Ma'am, we're picking up that distress signal again," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park from the communications station. "It's definitely alien in origin, but our translation algorithms are getting better at decoding it." Zara nodded, her fingers drumming against the armrest of her command chair. 3 weeks ago, the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Luna had intercepted a faint SOS signal from this remote system. The message had been transmitted on an emergency frequency that was supposedly universal, a mathematical sequence that any spacefaring civilization should recognize as a call for help. "What's the latest translation?" Zara asked. Park's fingers danced across her console. "The basics are clear, ma'am. They're calling themselves the Valkyrie Republic. Their colony ship has suffered catastrophic engine failure and is trapped in the outer system. They're requesting immediate assistance from any nearby vessels." "Any word on their numbers?" "Best estimate puts them at around 50,000 souls, Captain. Men, women, and children, an entire civilian population fleeing from something they call a hive swarm." Zara felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. Refugees. After the Proxima Centauri incident 5 years ago, Earth had adopted a strict policy of humanitarian intervention. When people were in trouble, you helped them, no questions asked, no politics involved. It was one of the few things that still made her proud to wear the uniform. "ETA to their position?" she asked. 18 hours at current speed, ma'am," replied Commander Marcus Webb, her executive officer. "Long-range sensors are picking up their ship now. It's big." Zara raised an eyebrow. "How big?" "Approximately 40 kilometers long, ma'am. Looks like a generation ship of some kind." The captain whistled low. Even by human standards, that was massive. Earth's largest vessels barely reached 8 kilometers in length. "Are they responding to our hails?" "Not yet, ma'am. Could be a language barrier, or their communications might be damaged." Zara stood and walked to the main viewscreen, where a distant speck of light marked their destination. Somewhere out there, 50,000 people were trapped in the cold emptiness of space, waiting for rescue. The fact that they weren't human didn't matter, desperation was universal. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Full speed ahead. And prep the universal translators. We're going to need them." Aboard the Valkyrie colony ship Eternal Dawn, panic filled the corridors like a living thing. The massive vessel, once a proud symbol of their civilization's expansion into the stars, now limped through space on failing systems. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the constant vibration from the damaged engines made sleep nearly impossible. First Speaker Kethvar moved through the ship with practiced grace, his forearms gesturing in the traditional patterns of calm reassurance. The Valkyrie were tall, slender beings with crystalline skin that reflected light in subtle rainbow patterns. Their large, multifaceted eyes could see across a wider spectrum than most species, but right now, all Kethvar saw was fear. First Speaker called out Engineering Chief Vostell as she approached from the engine section. Her usually pristine robes were stained with the blue-green fluid that served as both coolant and hydraulic medium for their technology. "The quantum resonance chambers are failing faster than projected. We have perhaps 10 days before complete collapse." Kethvar's skin flickered with patterns of concern. "And the distress signal?" "Still broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. We've detected several response pings, but nothing we can translate yet." "What about the hive swarm?" Vostell's skin went pale, nearly transparent. "Our long-range sensors lost them 6 days ago, but that doesn't mean they've given up the pursuit." "They never give up." Kethvar nodded grimly. The hive swarm had consumed 17 Valkyrie worlds in the past decade, turning entire civilizations into raw material for their expansion. The Eternal Dawn carried the last refugees from their homeworld, fleeing across the galaxy in search of a new place to call home. Continue monitoring all frequencies, he ordered. And pray to the crystal singers that whoever answers our call is both willing and able to help. The first sign that something was unusual came when the 7th Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Captain Chen Okafor was expecting to find a damaged civilian vessel, possibly under attack by pirates or dealing with some kind of mechanical failure. What she found instead made her blood run cold. "Jesus Christ," whispered Commander Webb, staring at the tactical display. "Captain, you need to see this." The Eternal Dawn hung in space like a wounded giant, its hull scarred by what looked like energy weapons fire. But that wasn't what had captured everyone's attention. Surrounding the colony ship were the twisted remains of at least 30 other vessels, their hulls torn open and their contents scattered across thousands of kilometers of space. Are those the attackers?" asked Lieutenant Park, her voice barely steady. "No," replied Chief Petty Officer Reynolds from the sensor station. "These look like escort vessels. Same design philosophy as the big ship, but smaller. I think they were trying to protect the colony ship." Zara felt her jaw tighten. "Survivors?" "Negative on the escort vessels, ma'am. They've been cold for weeks, maybe months. But the big ship, she's still running life support." "And ma'am?" Reynolds paused, checking his readings again. "I'm detecting approximately 50,000 life signs aboard that vessel." "Signal all ships," Zara ordered. "Combat alert status." "We don't know what did this, but I want us ready for anything." The 7th Fleet began to spread out into a defensive formation, their weapons systems coming online with practiced efficiency. The humans had been fighting interstellar wars for nearly a century now, first against the Centauri rebels, then the vegan pirates, and most recently the AI rebellion in the Tau Ceti system. They knew how to handle themselves in a fight. "Ma'am, I'm getting a response to our hails," reported Park. It's definitely alien, but the translation matrix is working. They're asking for identification and status." "Put me through," Zara said, straightening her uniform. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Zara Chen Okafor of the United Earth Navy. We received your distress signal and are here to render assistance. Please state your situation." The response came back in a melodic, sing-song voice that reminded Zara of wind chimes. "Earth vessel, this is First Speaker Kethvar of the Valkyrie Republic. We are grateful for your response. Our ship is damaged and our engines are failing. We have 50,000 civilians aboard, including many young ones. We urgently require assistance." Zara exchanged glances with her bridge crew. The universal translator was doing its job, but there was something about the alien's tone that suggested fear, deep, bone-deep terror that went beyond simple mechanical failure. "Understood, First Speaker. We're detecting debris around your vessel. What happened here?" There was a long pause before the response came. "We were pursued by entities you would not understand. They have been hunting us for many cycles, consuming our people and our worlds. We are all that remains of our civilization." The bridge fell silent. Zara had seen her share of warfare, but the complete destruction of an entire species was something else entirely. "First Speaker, we're going to approach your vessel and assess the situation. Our ships are equipped to handle large-scale evacuations if necessary. Earth vessel, I must warn you, the entities that pursued us may still be in this system. They are unlike anything in your experience. They do not negotiate, they do not show mercy, and they cannot be reasoned with. They exist only to consume." "Copy that, First Speaker. We'll keep our eyes open." Zara cut the connection and turned to her crew. "All right, people. We've got 50,000 refugees who need our help, and something nasty that might still be lurking in the neighborhood. I want constant sensor sweeps, and I want our fighters ready for launch at a moment's notice." "Ma'am," interrupted Chief Reynolds, "I'm picking up some kind of energy signature from the outer system. It's unusual. Like nothing I've ever seen before." "Elaborate." "It's organic, ma'am. The energy patterns are consistent with biological processes, but on a massive scale. And it's moving this way." Zara felt her blood turn to ice. How massive? Approximately 300 kilometers in diameter, ma'am. And there are more contacts behind it. A lot more. The main view screen shifted to show the outer system, where dozens of dark shapes were moving between the gas giants. Even at this distance, they looked wrong, twisted and organic, like some kind of living spacecraft. The hive swarm, whispered Commander Webb. They followed the refugees here. Zara was already moving, her training taking over. All ships, this is Fleet Command. We have multiple hostile contacts inbound. Estimated time to engagement, 6 hours. All ships are to prepare for immediate combat operations. She turned to the communications station. Get me the Eternal Dawn. And patch me through to Admiral Martinez at Fleet Command. We're going to need reinforcements. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The 7th Fleet took up defensive positions around the Eternal Dawn, while engineering teams worked around the clock to assess the colony ship's damage. The Valkyrie were cooperative, sharing their technical specifications and allowing human technicians aboard their vessel. What the humans found was both impressive and terrifying. The Eternal Dawn was a marvel of engineering, with technology that was centuries ahead of Earth's current capabilities. But it had been badly damaged by weapons that defied easy understanding, energy beams that seemed to dissolve matter at the molecular level, and some kind of boarding pods that had tried to penetrate the ship's hull. Their defensive systems are incredible, reported Chief Engineer Rodriguez over the comlink. Energy shields that can deflect almost anything, and armor that's stronger than anything we've ever seen. But whatever hit them punched through it like it was tissue paper. Meanwhile, the approaching hive swarm had grown larger. Long-range sensors now detected over 200 individual organisms, each one the size of a small city. They moved with purpose, following some kind of collective intelligence that made Zara's skin crawl. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Park from the communications station. "I'm getting a priority transmission from Fleet Command." "Put it through." Admiral Martinez's weathered face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. "Captain Okafor, I've been briefed on your situation. Unfortunately, the nearest fleet group is 3 weeks away. You're on your own." Zara felt her heart sink. "Understood, sir." "What are your orders?" "Evacuate as many civilians as possible and withdraw to a safe distance. We can't risk the entire 7th Fleet on a rescue mission." "Sir, with respect, there are 50,000 people on that ship. We can't just abandon them." "Captain, I understand your feelings, but we have to consider the bigger picture. If this hive swarm is as dangerous as you've described, we can't let them get their hands on human technology." Zara glanced around the bridge at her crew. She could see the conflict in their eyes, the same conflict she felt in her own heart. The smart play was to cut and run, save who they could and abandon the rest. But that wasn't why she joined the Navy. "Admiral, I'm going to need to call you back." "Captain, that's an order." Zara cut the connection and turned to her crew. "All right, people. We've got a choice to make. We can follow orders and abandon 50,000 innocent people to whatever's coming, or we can stand and fight. I won't lie to you, the odds aren't good. But sometimes doing the right thing means taking a risk." Commander Webb stood up slowly. "Ma'am, with respect, we're not exactly built for this kind of fight. Our ships are designed for combat against other human vessels, not, whatever those things are." "That's true," Zara admitted. "But we've got one advantage they don't expect. We're humans. We're stubborn, we're creative, and we don't know when to quit." She looked around the bridge one more time. "I'm not ordering anyone to stay. Any ship that wants to withdraw can do so with my blessing. But I'm staying. These people need help, and I'll be damned if I'm going to abandon them." The response was immediate and unanimous. "We're with you, Captain," said Commander Webb, speaking for the entire bridge crew. Similar responses came in from the other ships in the fleet. Zara felt a surge of pride. This was why she joined the Navy, not for the glory or the adventure, but for moments like this, when ordinary people chose to do extraordinary things. "All right then," she said. Let's get to work. We've got a battle to plan. The war council that followed was unlike anything in human military history. Representatives from 25 human vessels met with the leadership of the Valkyrie Republic aboard the Eternal Dawn. The alien ship's conference room was a marvel of crystal and living metal, with walls that seemed to shift and flow like water. First speaker Kethvar dominated the room with his tall, graceful presence. His skin flickered with patterns of gratitude and concern as he addressed the assembled humans. Your willingness to help us is unprecedented. In all our encounters with other species, none have ever chosen to stand with us against the hive swarm. What exactly are we dealing with? Asked Captain Shinokafor, getting straight to the point. Our sensors are having trouble getting clear readings on those things. Engineering Chief Vostell stepped forward, her forearms moving in complex patterns as she activated a holographic display. The hive swarm is a collective organism that spans multiple star systems. Each individual unit is a living ship, capable of independent thought but connected to the greater consciousness. They reproduce by consuming organic matter, entire civilizations, if necessary. The hologram showed a three-dimensional map of the local galaxy, with red markers indicating worlds that had been consumed by the swarm. There were dozens of them, forming a trail of destruction that stretched across hundreds of light-years. How do they fight? Asked Commander Webb. They use living weapons, replied Vostell. Energy beams that break down matter at the molecular level, acid sprays that can dissolve most metals, and boarding pods that carry warrior organisms. Their ships can heal damage almost instantly, and they learn from each encounter. Learning how? They consume their enemies, said Kethvar quietly. Body and mind. Every ship they destroy, every civilization they consume, becomes part of their collective knowledge. They know how to fight us because they have eaten our people. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. These weren't just another enemy fleet, they were a living nightmare that grew stronger with each victory. What about weaknesses? Asked Zara. Everything has weaknesses. They are vulnerable to certain types of energy, admitted Vostell. Quantum disruption fields can interfere with their collective consciousness, and extreme cold can slow their regeneration. But they adapt quickly. A tactic that works once may not work again. Zara studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. The 7th Fleet was outnumbered 10-1, facing an enemy that could learn and adapt. By all conventional military logic, they should withdraw immediately. But humans had never been particularly good at conventional logic. Chief Rodriguez, she said, turning to her head engineer. How fast can we modify our weapons systems? What kind of modifications, ma'am? I want every energy weapon we have converted to quantum disruption frequencies. And I want our torpedo warheads replaced with cryogenic charges. Rodriguez blinked in surprise. Ma'am, that's completely outside our technical specifications. We'd be operating blind. Then we'll have to improvise, Zara said with a grim smile. First speaker, how long do we have? Kethvar's skin flickered with patterns of calculation. The hive swarm will arrive in approximately 4 hours. They will likely attempt to board and consume the Eternal Dawn first, then turn their attention to your fleet. Not if we hit them first, Zara said. We're going to need every advantage we can get. The next 4 hours were a frenzy of activity. Human engineers worked alongside Valkyrie technicians to modify weapons systems and defensive arrays. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also completely different from human engineering principles. Still, both species were smart enough to learn from each other. Captain, reported Chief Rodriguez over the calm, we've managed to modify about 60% of our weapons systems. The quantum disruption fields are untested, but they should interfere with the swarm's collective consciousness. And the cryogenic charges? Loaded and ready, ma'am. We've also managed to rig some of the Eternal Dawn shield generators to our power grid. It's not pretty, but it should give us an extra layer of protection. Zara nodded, feeling the familiar pre-battle tension building in her chest. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces grim but determined. They all knew what they were facing. Ma'am, called out Lieutenant Park from the communications station. I'm picking up transmissions from the outer system. The hive swarm is trying to communicate. Put it through. What came over the speakers wasn't a voice, it was something else entirely. A chorus of whispers in a dozen different languages, all speaking at once. Some of the words were recognizable as Valkyrie, others sounded like languages that had been dead for centuries. We are coming, the voices said in unison. We hunger. Your flesh will feed us. Your knowledge will strengthen us. Your ships will serve us. Resistance is futile. We are eternal. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. Those weren't just threats, they were promises. Ma'am, reported Chief Reynolds from the sensor station. I'm detecting the lead elements of the hive swarm. They're not what I expected. The main view screen shifted to show the approaching enemy. The creatures were massive, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. They moved through space like living things, their forms shifting and changing as they approached. Some looked like enormous jellyfish, others like twisted trees or predatory fish. But all of them radiated a malevolent intelligence that made Zara's skin crawl. Fleet-wide transmission, she ordered. All ships, this is Fleet Command. The enemy has arrived. You know what we're fighting for. Make every shot count. The response came back immediately from 25 different captains. Aye, ma'am. Ready to engage. Zara took a deep breath and settled into her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew prepared for battle with practiced efficiency. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy unlike anything they'd ever encountered. But they were human. And humans had a long history of winning impossible battles. All ships, she ordered. Execute attack pattern Delta. For Earth and the Valkyrie Republic. For Earth and the Valkyrie Republic, came the chorus of responses. The Battle of Kepler 442 had begun. The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness of space like a miniature star. The Seventh Fleet opened with a coordinated barrage of modified energy weapons, their quantum disruption beams lancing out across millions of kilometers to strike the leading hive organisms. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The creatures' bioluminescent patterns flickered and dimmed as the disruption fields interfered with their collective consciousness. Several of the smaller organisms spiraled out of control, their coordination broken. Direct hits, reported Chief Reynolds. We're reading massive disruption in their formation. But the celebration was short-lived. The hive swarm adapted with terrifying speed, their organic hulls shifting and changing to better resist the quantum disruption fields. Within minutes, they were advancing again, their formations tighter and more coordinated than before. They're learning, observed Commander Webb grimly. Just like the Valkyrie said they would. The return fire was like nothing the humans had ever seen. Living energy beams reached out from the hive organisms, not just targeting the ships but seemingly trying to digest them. Where the beams hit, hull plating didn't just vaporize, it seemed to dissolve, breaking down into its component molecules. Evasive maneuvers, ordered Zara as one of the beams barely missed the retribution. All ships, scatter formation. The human fleet split apart, their ships dancing between the energy beams with practiced precision. The Seventh Fleet had been fighting together for 3 years, and they knew each other's capabilities by heart. They moved like a school of fish, each ship anticipating the other's movements. But the hive swarm was relentless. For every organism they destroyed, 2 more took its place. And they were getting closer to the eternal dawn. Captain, called out Lieutenant Park. I'm receiving a transmission from the eternal dawn. First Speaker Kethvar wants to speak with you. Put him through. The alien's melodic voice filled the bridge, but this time it carried undertones of desperation. Captain Chenokafor, you must withdraw. The hive swarm is too strong. Save your people while you still can. Not happening, First Speaker. We're in this together. But your ships, they are being damaged. Your people are dying for us. Zara glanced at the tactical display, where the destroyer Valiant was listed as heavily damaged, its crew fighting to keep life support online. 3 other ships showed significant damage, and they'd only been fighting for 20 minutes. First speaker, sometimes you have to take a stand. Today, we stand with you. There was a long pause before the response came. Then may the Crystal Singers bless your courage. We will not forget this. The battle raged on. The humans had managed to destroy or disable nearly 30 of the hive organisms, but there were still over 150 left. And they were adapting faster than the humans could modify their tactics. "Ma'am," reported Chief Rodriguez. "I'm reading critical damage to the Prometheus. They're requesting immediate assistance." Zara made a quick decision. "Signal the Thunderchild and the Defiant. Full speed to the Prometheus. Cover their withdrawal." But as the 2 destroyers moved to assist their damaged sister ship, they flew directly into a trap. A cluster of smaller hive organisms had been waiting in the shadow of a larger one, and they swarmed the rescue ships like antibodies attacking an infection. "Jesus," whispered Commander Webb as they watched the tactical display. "They're using pack tactics." The Thunderchild disappeared in a burst of dissolving energy, her crew of 300 lost in an instant. The Defiant managed to escape, but not before taking heavy damage. Zara felt each loss like a physical blow. These weren't just ships, they were her people, her responsibility. And she was failing them. "Ma'am," said Chief Reynolds quietly. "I'm detecting movement from the Eternal Dawn. They're powering up their engines." "What?" On the main view screen, the massive Valkyrie colony ship was beginning to move. Its damaged engines flickered to life, pushing the giant vessel forward into the battle. "First speaker, what are you doing?" Zara demanded over the comm. "What we should have done long ago," came the reply. "We are tired of running. Tired of watching others die for us. If we are to fall, we will fall fighting." The Eternal Dawn was moving slowly, its damaged engines struggling to accelerate the massive vessel. But it was moving toward the heart of the hive swarm, its ancient weapons systems coming online for the first time in decades. "Captain," reported Chief Reynolds in an odd voice. "I'm reading massive energy buildup from the colony ship. They're charging some kind of weapon I've never seen before." The Eternal Dawn lit up like a Christmas tree, its crystalline hull glowing with internal energy. And then, with a sound that somehow carried across the vacuum of space, it fired. The weapon was unlike anything in human experience. It wasn't a beam or a projectile, it was a wave of pure force that swept across the battlefield like a tsunami. Where it touched the hive organisms, their organic hulls simply stopped. They didn't explode or dissolve, they just stopped living. 50 of the creatures died in that single blast. The rest of the hive swarm recoiled as if struck by a physical blow. "My God," breathed Commander Webb. "What was that?" "A weapon of last resort," came First Speaker Kethvar's reply. "One that we swore never to use again. But desperate times call for desperate measures." "Can you fire it again?" "Not without destroying ourselves in the process. The energy requirements are considerable." Zara looked at the tactical display. The hive swarm was still advancing, but they were clearly shaken by the Valkyrie weapon. Now was the time to press their advantage. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. The enemy is weakened. Full attack, all weapons free. Let's finish this." The 7th Fleet surged forward, their modified weapons systems carving through the confused hive organisms. The cryogenic charges worked better than anyone had hoped, freezing the creatures' organic hulls and making them vulnerable to conventional weapons. But the battle was far from over. The hive swarm was adapting again, their formations shifting to counter the human tactics. And in the chaos of battle, Zara noticed something that made her blood run cold. The largest of the hive organisms, a creature nearly as big as the Eternal Dawn, was hanging back from the main battle. It was watching, learning, analyzing every move the humans made. "That's the Queen," she realized. "Or the Commander, or whatever they call it. It's coordinating the entire swarm." "Ma'am," asked Commander Webb. "Signal all ships. We need to take out that big one. It's the brain of the operation. But even as she spoke, Zara knew it wouldn't be easy. The creature was surrounded by dozens of smaller organisms, protected by layers of living armor. Getting close enough to attack would be suicide. Unless... Chief Rodriguez, she said suddenly. Do we still have those experimental FTL torpedoes in storage? Yes, ma'am. 3 of them. But they're completely untested. Prep them for launch. And set them for minimum range jumps. Ma'am, that's incredibly dangerous. If the calculations are off by even a small amount, then we'll deal with the consequences. But we need to get past those defensive screens. The experimental torpedoes were a new development from Earth's research labs, weapons that could make short-range FTL jumps to bypass enemy defenses. They'd never been tested in combat, and the margin for error was razor-thin. Torpedoes ready, ma'am. Fire when ready. The 3 torpedoes launched from the Retribution, disappearing into hyperspace after traveling only a few hundred kilometers. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, all 3 reappeared simultaneously inside the defensive screen around the massive hive organism. The explosions were devastating. The creature's organic hull ruptured in multiple places, spewing bioluminescent fluid into space. But more importantly, its coordination patterns flickered and went dark. Across the battlefield, the other hive organisms began to move erratically, their collective consciousness disrupted by the loss of their coordinator. Several smaller creatures actually turned on each other, their programmed behaviors breaking down. Now, ordered Zara. All ships, concentrate fire on the damaged target. The combined firepower of the 7th Fleet and the Eternal Dawn focused on the wounded creature. Under the relentless barrage, its organic hull began to collapse. Within minutes, the massive organism was nothing more than debris floating in space. The effect on the rest of the hive swarm was immediate and catastrophic. Without their coordinator, the creature's collective consciousness fragmented. Some fled back toward the outer system, others simply stopped moving altogether. A few continued fighting, but they were uncoordinated and easily destroyed. Cease fire, ordered Zara as the last of the hostile organisms was eliminated. All ships, report status. The damage reports came in one by one. The 7th Fleet had lost 2 ships completely, with 4 others heavily damaged. But they had survived. More importantly, they had won. Captain, came first speaker Kethvar's voice over the comm. There are no words in any language to express our gratitude. You have saved not just our lives, but our entire species. Zara slumped back in her command chair, exhaustion washing over her. Just doing our job, first speaker. How are your people? Shaken, but alive. The Eternal Dawn will need extensive repairs, but we will survive. Thanks to you and your brave crews. Ma'am, interrupted Chief Reynolds from the sensor station. I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures from the outer system. Long-range sensors indicate it's a fleet. A big one. Zara felt her heart sink. Had more of the hive swarm arrived? But as the sensor data clarified, she realized the truth was both better and worse. Ma'am, it's the 2nd Fleet. Admiral Martinez is hailing us. The main viewscreen shifted to show the stern face of Admiral Martinez, but for once, the old man looked pleased. Captain Okafor, I have to admit, when I heard about your little unauthorized battle, I was prepared to court-martial you. But the sensor data we're receiving is impressive. Thank you, sir. What's the status of the 2nd Fleet? We're here to assist with the evacuation and provide security for the system. And Captain? The President himself has asked me to convey his congratulations. What you did here today, it's going to change everything. Zara looked around the bridge at her crew. They were exhausted, battered, but triumphant. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. All in a day's work, sir. The Valkyrie embassy on Earth was a marvel of crystal and living metal, its spires reaching toward the sky like frozen music. Inside, first speaker Kethvar stood before a gathering of human diplomats, his skin flickering with patterns of gratitude and hope. The Valkyrie Republic formally requests permission to establish a permanent colony in the Kepler 442 system, he said, his melodic voice carrying easily through the chamber. We wish to become neighbors, friends, and allies of humanity. The response was overwhelmingly positive. The Battle of Kepler 442 had captured the imagination of Earth's population, and the Valkyrie had quickly become heroes in their own right. Their advanced technology, shared freely with their human rescuers, had already begun to revolutionize everything from medicine to space travel. But more importantly, the battle had established a precedent. When the Hive swarm had attacked the Andromedan colonies 3 months later, it wasn't just human ships that responded, it was a joint task force of human and Valkyrie vessels, working together with unprecedented coordination. The galaxy was changing. Species that had never cooperated before were forming alliances, sharing technology and resources. The age of isolation was ending, replaced by something new, a community of worlds united by common cause. Captain Zara Okafor stood on the observation deck of the new space station orbiting Kepler 442b, watching as human and Valkyrie ships worked together to build the first truly integrated colony in galactic history. The 7th Fleet had been disbanded, its surviving ships reassigned to the new multi-species defense force. But the legacy of that desperate battle lived on. Captain, came a familiar voice behind her. First Speaker Kethvar approached with his characteristic grace, his skin glowing with patterns of friendship. Or should I say, Admiral? Zara smiled. Her promotion had come through the previous week, along with command of the new integrated fleet. First Speaker. How are the colony preparations coming? Better than expected. Your people and mine work well together. We are building something unprecedented, a society where 2 species can truly cooperate as equals. And the Hive swarm? Kethvar's pattern shifted to show cautious optimism. No sightings in over a month. Your strategy of coordinated defense networks appears to be working. They cannot adapt to an enemy that constantly changes its tactics. Zara nodded, but she knew the war was far from over. The Hive swarm was patient, calculating. They would be back, probably with new strategies and new weapons. But when they came, they would find a galaxy united against them. You know, she said, when we first received your distress signal, we thought we were just rescuing a single ship. We had no idea we were starting a revolution. Neither did we, admitted Kethvar. But perhaps that is how the greatest changes begin, not with grand plans, but with simple acts of courage and compassion. As they watched, a new ship descended toward the planet's surface. It was unlike any vessel either species had built before, a hybrid design that incorporated the best of both human and Valkyrie technology. The first of many, if the joint development projects succeeded. The children born in that colony, Zara said, will grow up in a galaxy where cooperation between species is normal. They'll never know a time when humans and Valkyrie fought alone.